Hello there, and welcome back to the last lesson of the physics chapter. If you turn to page 50, let's start there and see what we can do first. I know we have terms on page 49. We will come back to those. But I want to show you the pictures first this time because this is something that I think will help you when we get to the definitions. So I'm on page 50 of the student work text, and we're looking at some simple machines. And you may be thinking, well, this is not a machine. A machine is a computer or a refrigerator or a fax machine, something complicated, a car. These are simple machines. So machines that we think of, the complicated ones, are made up of these simpler ones. These different kinds of simple machines help us create larger machines. So if you took apart the space shuttle, which is a very complicated machine, or it used to be, you would find examples of simple machines in there too. So just some terminology and pictures. The first one is a lever, and you can see that the man is moving this rock by operating the lever, which is this thing, and this rock is important. We'll see why in just a minute. There is a term that goes with that one. Okay, the wheel and axle. This is an example of a wheel and axle where you would turn this wheel or rotate that thing to pull up the bucket. So you're using the process of turning to pull up the bucket. The pulley, you have this cord that runs through the pulley and around. And as you operate the pulley, you're doing the work. You're lifting the package using a hook. This one we've all seen before. The gentleman is rolling this heavy barrel up an inclined plane as opposed to carrying it. So an inclined plane is a ramp. A wedge is this thing. We're using the wedge to split the large log in two. That's the work that's being done. And a screw, all of you have seen these where you have one part that screws into another. Any piece of furniture that's in my house has been either nailed or screwed together. So those are very common pieces of simple machinery. Okay, let's go back to our definitions and get those filled in. Now, some of them were not on that page, so we'll talk about those. The first one, because these are in alphabetical order, is fluid friction. Fluid friction is resistance of an object's movement through liquid or gas. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of a lag here. It won't, there we go. I'm not sure what happened, but hopefully it's finished doing what it's going to do. The resistance of an object's movement through liquid or gas. And I totally have a misspelled word here. Do you know which one it is and why? I have made this mistake all my life. Right there. That should be an A. Resistance. I have trouble with A-N-C-E and E-N-C-E. So watch me on that. If I do it again, don't make that mistake with me. It is a plague that has been with me. Spelling is not my thing. I'm a math person, so my apologies there. Friction, just plain old friction. And remember, we had this in the last word problem where we talked about net force, and we had the lady pulling the sled and friction was working against her. Friction is resistance or opposition to motion. And if you rub your hands together very fast, you will feel heat. That is because of friction. There's that natural tendency to resist motion. So you have the heat that's building up as a result of friction. A fulcrum is the pivot point on a lever. And I want to go back to that picture of a lever. The pivot point, I'm going to scroll over one page. Remember this fella with his lever? Here's the lever. The fulcrum is right here, where the lever is resting on that rock. That is going to give him much more control over the lever. The fulcrum is where the work occurs. Okay. All right. Gravitational force. You can probably tell me this one without even having to write it down. Gravitational force is the force of attraction between two objects with mass. For example, the Earth and the Moon. We talked about this back when we talked about Earth science. Gravity is what holds the Moon and the Earth in tandem so that they can rotate and orbit together. Gravitational force is a force of attraction. An inclined plane, we saw a picture of that. That is simply a ramp. A lever is a simple machine with a bar that pivots about a point. And you remember what that point is called? Where that bar was lying on that rock is called the fulcrum. That is the point where it pivots. A magnetic force is a force between two magnets. If you put a positive pole of a magnet and a negative pole of a magnet together, they're going to pull. Opposites attract. A pulley is a grooved wheel, and grooved means that it's not smooth. It has dips in it, kind of like corrugated cardboard. A grooved wheel through which a rope passes. And we saw a picture of that too. The package they were lifting with that rope passes through the pulley. Rolling friction. We know what friction is. Rolling friction is resistance, I caught it that time, of a round object's movement. So a basketball. A round object's movement has friction because it's round. It's rolling friction. Sliding friction is another type of resistance to motion between two objects sliding past each other, like rubbing your hands together. Anywhere I see friction, I can put the word resistance. So this is sliding resistance. And then static friction or static resistance is resistance to movement between an object and the surface on which it sits. Why do snow boots have rubber soles? Because that sole, if the shoe is sitting on icy ground or slippery ground, and it won't move as easily. That's static friction. It's the resistance to move between an object and the surface it's sitting on. So snow boots have rubber soles for a reason. If you try to wear high heel shoes in ice, that's generally not a good plan because there is less of that static friction between the sole of the shoe and the ice. Okay, I forgot to tell you this is pages 105 to 109 in the textbook if you want to read more about force work in machines. We are finished with physics. So in the next unit we will be talking about cells, which is a type of life science. But it is so important that I decided to go ahead and give you a full chapter on just cells. We will look at lots of terms. We will look at bacteria and plants and animals and all kinds of things here. So this little chapter will get you ready to understand the life science. So that will be our next unit, but we are finished with physics. And I will see you very soon. I hope you have a great day.